Hello, folks, and welcome to the Tech World Human Skills Podcast. It is wonderful as ever to have you with us. Now, in this episode, we're talking about the power of the tech community. And I love this topic because we're talking about the beating heart of the tech world, the people, and how we can help each other out. So to help us with the conversation today, we have got someone that is so passionate about the tech community and for years has been organising events and creating communities. So please welcome to the podcast, Ethan Sumner. Ethan, it is lovely to have you with us.
Thank you for having me on, Ben.
Well, absolute pleasure. And I wonder if we could start. Could you introduce yourself to all of our wonderful listeners?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you. I'm Ethan Sumner. I'm the CEO of DevEx Connect. We are a community-driven independent research analyst and events organization within everything under the developer experience umbrella. So DevOps, SRE, and platform engineering, as well as traditional DevEx, not developer productivity. We're not wanting to go down that rabbit hole. But yeah, and then also run numerous different communities up and around the UK, predominantly in Yorkshire, where I'm based. I'm very proud to come from Barnsley. And I also chair the Yorkshire Digital Community Alliance alongside one of my good friends and ex-colleagues, Ethan Jones.
Lovely. And what's your sort of roadmap to getting there? Because I believe it's relatively new, this role that you have got now. So what's your background and I guess career been leading up until this point?
So to be honest, it's been very crazy. So as you can all quite tell, I'm quite young. I'm 21. I've been in the industry now 5 years, started when I was 16. I originally had the goal of being a DevOps engineer, worked very hard in different startups and traditional software engineering positions, managed to get DevOps engineer at MasterCard at 18, which is pretty cool, working with international banking systems. And then went to Microsoft. I was a cloud solutions architect, which was pretty cool within public sector and then digital natives. And then moving on to Contino before being acquired by Cognizant in all things sort of FinOps. So I've done different areas around IT. And then community-wise, I started my first user group called Young DevOps, which is all about trying to solve early career challenges within kind of the DevOps and IT operations space, and that just expanded to Yorkshire DevOps and Yorkshire User Group. At peak, I run about 7 user groups. We've acquired around 11, I think, in total, merged them through. So at the moment, I support something about 60, 70 events per year and do numerous different strategic advisory bits around the country to other user groups as well. So yeah, it's been a pretty wild career, but community and sort of the day job have accelerated it. And that's how I've got the job I am now. I got headhunted by Paul Stovall, to CEO of Octopus Deploy, who owns DevEx Connect. So yeah, that's why I got the job. But yeah, very much looking forward to it.
Brilliant. Now, I wonder, therefore, if we could start to maybe dig into the depths of tech community and that kind of stuff. And I wonder if we could start off by thinking about the current state of the tech community landscape. So what's it like out there from a community perspective at the moment?
I think for me, it's quite good at the moment. I think it was really, really strong, obviously pre-COVID. COVID put a bit of a damper on different things. 21, 22, it was sort of getting the community back together, events restarting to organise. There's been quite a large shift in organisers and companies getting involved. And then sort of last year, it was all around establishing foundations, and really I'm seeing through 2024, it's scaling up quite a lot. User groups are back and attendance numbers are back. They're not as so for example, for Yorkshire DevOps, we get around 60, 78 people per event. Pre-COVID, it was about 90 to 100, so we still got that wiggle room for growth. But I think it's very much dependent on regional perspective. So if you're in London, I think that's still actually got a bit of time to return. User groups are strong, but not there. I think in areas around Leeds, like the Leeds tech community scene is amazing. I mean, I know you did that talk at Yorkshire User Group, Ben, which is pretty cool. We got a lot of good feedback on that. And I think it's a very strong community. I know Scotland's doing quite well at the moment, quite an uprising community scene. So yeah, it's rocky, but it's pretty good. It's getting there. I think 2025 is going to be the year of growth for UGs. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it sort of feels, if I think about the user group, so I've been to sort of quite a lot over the last few years, well, many years if I go all the way back, and it definitely feels like we've got a bit more life post COVID. It definitely it was great to see the communities move online, to Zoom and Teams calls and that kind of stuff. But everybody was just like death by video called out. And do they then want to spend their evening doing more? So it felt like that made a real challenge. But it feels like it's getting back now.
Yeah, I think the online stuff is quite interesting. What I've found is that if you've got quite an active Slack group, all that kind of asynchronous stuff is really good. But you're right, particularly if you're working from home, I think I've seen a lot of value. I think personally as myself as well, attending a user group just to meet people in person, have that shift of dynamic, particularly if you work for a company which is like based in London and you live in Leeds, for example. So yeah, it's quite interesting. I think there's also quite a strong demand for pre-recorded content. It's why we started to record a lot of the user groups. You can probably see the camera kit behind me. That's why we invested in it. So it's quite interesting. What I find is even at conferences, people go for the networking and don't really attend the talks and then sit and watch them after. So it's quite unique in a way.
Yeah. It is. It's nice. And I've definitely noticed, if I think about conferences, probably after COVID, there was a bit where people still didn't really want to get together. They'd sort of, can I be bothered? Do I want to? Whereas now I've noticed a difference in that people actually want to get together. They actually want to see each other. They've been sat at home on their own for so many years. I actually do. And I've noticed the step up in people's attendance and that kind of stuff. Certainly in the last year, I think I've noticed that going up, which is really good. In fact, it just reminds me, I did a podcast a few episodes ago with Scott Hanselman,
Yes.
and he was talking about this idea of a third place, how people used to have their home, their work life, so they would be at home with the family, then they would be at a physical workplace, and then they would have a third place. Sometimes that might be a sports and social group, that might be a church, that might be whatever it might be, but there were things that, and you had three places, and that sort of collapsed down into one of, I work at home, I socialise at home, and I've got nowhere else to go. And so actually these sorts of events and that open up that kind of third place again, this idea where there's somewhere else we can go, meet and socialise and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Because you're right. It's like you're doing the same thing. I think particularly people who don't. I'm very fortunate to have a dedicated office, but it's only a recent addition. And you're right. If you're just in the same room, you're living, eating, sleeping, and that kind of thing, it doesn't. Yeah, I totally get it. But it's quite interesting. We get a lot of regulars at community groups. What I find, and it's really good to see people enjoying it and coming back and making friends and different things from it. It's very good.
And what about more internationally? So.
Yeah.
I guess we've got the UK user groups, conferences, that kind of stuff. What about broadly the US, across Europe? Is the community thriving globally?
I would say the UK and India are leading the charge at the moment. They're very strong from a community standpoint. The US, obviously, due to the nature of how large it is, there's certain areas. I think the San Francisco tech scene has reduced a bit. I'm aware that the Boston kind of scene in Boston, Massachusetts, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, is very strong at the moment. There's quite a few different user groups there. I think in Australia, it's still picking up in APAC. So Central Europe is getting there, but it's very much kind of strict to that, I would say, to the capital or kind of like very major cities. So in the UK, there's a massive tech scene in Birmingham, Leeds, London, Manchester, and then kind of smaller areas in Scotland. If you go to like Germany, it's pretty much the capital and then a few other kind of major cities. So there's really what I would call the proper niche in your local communities aren't there. They're more central, larger. I'd also say a lot of them are quite more corporate driven than actual community led. It's like a specific user group to one area or something like that. So I'd say across the whole, like the AWS user group community is doing quite well. The Microsoft community is getting there. The GCP one's still a bit rocky globally at the moment. I'd say like your more traditional umbrellas, so like your DevOps SRE could do with a bit of work as well. So yeah, it's been quite interesting to see how the global community landscape has shifted recently.
Yeah. Well, maybe let's just start to then think for listeners that aren't involved but would like to get more involved or that kind of stuff, or don't even know if they should get involved. What's the point in the community? So like what benefit is there to getting involved in a community?
So I think for me, there's three areas which I always like to mention. just meet people, connections, networking, whether that's professionally or I know people who've, made friends through different user groups, etc. A lot of my friends are actually from community and I've gone on to do different things with them. I'd say the second part is obviously L&D. You learn a lot, and if you go to a quite well organized user group, it's not sales pitches from vendors. It's more that really local insights, how organization has done a massive challenge. For example, I went to AWS London Summit. There was a fantastic talk by EDF on how they did their DevOps transformations. I've got BT, we're doing an event with BT in September, and they're talking about how they do developer experience, etc. So it's pretty cool, to be honest, and how they also did the AI stuff as well, which is pretty cool. And then I'd say the third part is obviously growing yourself. So whether that's either organizing or speaking or something like that. I've tried to put a large emphasis. I know we've been working on this, to try and get new speakers into the space and get themselves on the circuit, if you like. So, I think those are the three core benefits in my eyes.
Yeah, and I think I'd really agree with that. I think, I love, so the first point you were talking about there is just building networks, getting to know people. There's people that you that you come across that you wouldn't meet otherwise, and I think that was one of the things that COVID did. Was COVID kind of ruined serendipity. There was no, I just bump into somebody here and have this random conversation that leads to this thing that then leads to this thing. It's all very much 30-minute time slices with an agenda, and we turn up, we do this thing, we kind of leave. Excuse me. Whereas when you're meeting people, all those kind of conversations, and you don't know who you're going to meet, that leads to some interesting things. And in fact, we've been met through community and that kind of stuff, which has then led to you coming on this podcast. It's led to some work we're collaborating on. Maybe we'll talk about that later. There's things that came from that just because we were in a room together and had a conversation, which, so that is really the other thing then is you find out about that kind of, what jobs are around, what's it really like working at this company. And if I think about you, a lot of the jobs you've made through, or the jobs that you've got, you've helped get them because of your community network. Is that right?
Yeah, I'd also say it's because I'm quite well known. There's a lot. It's quite strange. I wouldn't call myself an influencer because I'm more in the background doing the operations and logistics. But it's quite weird. People just randomly stopping me at events and going, "You're Ethan. You do that. X, Y, Z." So yeah, a lot of my jobs. So when I joined Contino, so Ben Hicks, my former manager, he just saw the amazing work I did on LinkedIn, and when I said I was open to work, he just sent me a message saying, "Love the community stuff. Do you want to have an interview?" kind of thing. It's the same way I've got my new job. So yeah, it is quite good from a community standpoint, just being recognized, being open. But I'd say even if you don't do any of the organizing or speaking, just being present at your local community shows a lot of initiative in my personal view. It shows that you care about your job, interest. I appreciate, even if you just attend like once or twice a year, I appreciate not everybody can attend for different reasons. But you're right, for particular communities like in Leeds, there's only so many big companies, and there's people do a stint at one company and then the next consultancy and all this kind of thing. It's a very small network. Everybody knows each other. So being involved with that, and you're right, you can gain insights and different things. You can get particularly if you're going through recruitment for a major local employer in your area. If you attend a community, you'll likely find someone from them. So whether it's asking for advice or speaking to people. So yeah, it's pretty cool. But community has made a massive impact on my life from a kind of job opportunity standpoint. That's not the main reason why I do it, but it's just a added benefit, which is what I see.
Yeah, and then you get to learn some cool stuff, don't you? I mean, I was just thinking about when I came up to the user group in Leeds, and the other speaker was did a great session on comparing and contrasting the different speech synthesis software that was out there. And he was going through, what the pros and cons. He was showing us how to do it. It's not something I would ever have done, probably. Really interesting. Learn a lot. And you just learn some cool stuff. So, you learn some great stuff. You build your network. It can help your career. I think loads of great benefits, really.
Definitely.
Loads of things. things. Well, in case people are thinking, how do I get involved? How would you suggest people start getting involved in the community a little bit?
So I say there's sort of three ways. What I usually recommend is I usually like to recommend three different things of things, as you probably notice. I'd say the first one is identify a community that you want to start. So that's how I sort of get started. You know, there wasn't an Azure community in Yorkshire. So that's why me and Ethan started it. And then you sort of go from there. The second side is volunteering or get involved in an existing community. So whether that's just, I've had people approach, we're bringing on 3 new organizers for the generative AI community that I run. And I'm all about, training different people to help eventually take over and run it. And that's sort of, get involved from that perspective. The third, I would say, is try and take over a dormant user group. So say, for example, there's like local communities that have been going for around 2 years, or it didn't pick up after COVID, but it already has an established membership base. So I would do a bit of an M&A and acquire the user group and then just kickstart it, because you've already got that established brand and it's much easier to just carry it on, if you see what I mean. Because you can often see previous speakers, they may want to speak again, or different venues that they previously used. I appreciate companies have upsized or downsized their office space since COVID, but that's how I traditionally would recommend to get involved with it.
Okay, now those three things again. Those three things were
So find an area which you want to organize a user group in and go do it. Second one, I would say go volunteer with a user group, and then get more involved, either start your own or carry on. Third, I would say, is find a dormant user group and then take it over and bring it back to life.
Right. And so can I step back a little bit and go, so for some people that might be, that's like you're going to now become the organizer and the orchestrator of the entire community. There's probably, and can we dig into those in a minute? Probably there's some easier steps for people that just want to dip their toe in the water of the community world. For people that are more at the toe dipping phase of the community, what would be the main ways to get involved?
I think for me, either volunteering. So for example, volunteering to help just one event. So if you've got a monthly user group, say, look, I'm interested in maybe getting involved with this. Could I help organize some speakers? Or you could do a special event. So for example, I'm trying to put emphasis on like women in tech events and different things. So, if you want to get involved with that perspective, or a lot of conferences have volunteering. So to DevOps Days London, we have around 8 to 10 volunteers. So people are interested in getting involved with conference organizing communities. They can get involved and we give them a free ticket and they get half the day to still go do the conference, if you like. So that's how I'd sort of dip your toe in. It's quite weird that there isn't really an intermediate. It's sort of that, or you just full blown. There's not really kind of those small opportunities. But
well, I guess you sort of, the first thing is just attending, isn't it? So the first thing is get involved, see what's going on, get the lay of the land, kind of. So it feels to me like that's the first thing is, well, hey, let's go and see what people are like. Then the other thing is it's a great place to then start to deliver some sessions, and it's a great safe place to practice your public speaking, get used to doing some talks to people. I think it's a great place to do some of that sort of stuff as well, isn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think one very common thing which people don't realize is if you don't want to speak or you're not good at public speaking, there's so many kind of logistics and operations side towards the community. So even if you don't want to get up and go speak or do the introductions, if you're more an established user group with a couple organizers, it's not an issue. So for DevOps Days, like London, for example, there's so many amazing people who you won't find on stage shouting about what they do, but they've got one of the most critical and important jobs, making sure logistically that event is amazing. So I think a lot of people forget about that side to it as well.
Yeah. And I think, that's a great way to develop some leadership skills. I think particularly as you are developing your career a little bit, some of those orchestration and leadership skills can be really helpful, and then really helpful in future, giving you experience and then giving you some stories that you can use in interviews to talk about, right, well, this is how I set this up, this is how I took this, this is how I was proactive, and that's really lovely as a former hiring manager to have people that have learnt those sorts of skills is really useful.
You're right, because not everybody has the opportunity to move into management, in the day, in the day job. So you're right, picking up those kind of side skills, can able to use those skills. And when you either go for an internal promotion or obviously change your organization, you can definitely use them. There's a lot
Yeah.
of really good skills. Like I've learned social media, video. I mean, I'm not very good at social media, but social media, video editing, different things like PR, finance, and the different things. Yeah, it's quite interesting. There's a lot of really cool skills that you learn.
Yeah, yeah. And then if we sort of move on to that speaking piece,
Yeah,
because that's a bit where we're doing a little bit collaboration, haven't we? Aren't we, Ethan? Where you know sometimes the speaker circuit for these things can be the same folks going round and around and around doing the same things,
yeah,
and it would be awesome to get some more people up there sharing the really important things that they've learned, that they've known, building those skills. So what we've built together is a tech community speaker course. So
yeah,
specifically aimed, it's just a short digital 90-minute course aimed at people that specifically want to get and build those skills and develop their speaking skills at user groups, at events where they're doing those sorts of things, so that hopefully we can get a few more, diverse speakers from different backgrounds with different things to say, not the same old folks going around the circuit.
yeah. I think definitely. I mean, I know I've been speaking around it for a couple of months, and that's why obviously we decided to develop the course. But for years, I've had people come in to me saying, "Look, I'd love to speak, but I've never done any public speaker training, or my company won't fund it. Or I've never had the opportunity." So I think it's a great way for everybody to learn and get involved, and obviously go out and speak in your community, and maybe even join this, maybe even join the circuit themselves if you like.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty cool. There's so many unique stories. We've had some amazing speakers, and it's something which we sort of half offered. Either I'll sit on a call with someone and help coach them, or run through the presentation, give them feedback, etc. So it's great that there finally is a place. That's the whole reason why I did this course, that people can go and experience it. And obviously through our community endeavors. So we've purchased a couple of courses to obviously give to our local communities. And then through our my new job, we've launched something called Operation Uplift, which is around providing £100,000 in funding in the UK to user groups around the country in all sorts of areas, predominantly in that kind of core five areas, sorry. DevEx, DevOps, SRE, platform engineering, and cloud. So I think we've funded about 100 licenses. So yeah, if you're a speaker and you're interested in speaking in that space, please get in touch with one of us and we can put you in, we can get something sorted for you.
Yeah, growing the next generation of people with interesting things to share and great experiences. So we've got the people attending, we've got the people trying to speak from people that thinking, do you know what, I reckon I might be able to run a community. I reckon I got headspace in my life, and it's something that I'm passionate about. You talked about either taking over a dormant one or setting up. What top tips would you have for running a community for any people that fancy that?
Yeah, I think for me, there's kind of two sides to it. So if you're wanting kind of more of what I call the funner side of organizing, so having a small local community, you organize one community, two communities, you do about 10 events per year, you take regular breaks. I think that's quite fun, getting involved. That's all about building that true, authentic kind of small niche. You don't have to be focused on scale. If you're more up to the side where I am now, where it's more things, at scale, multiple user groups, making sure we've got partnerships, alliances, really trying to grow, do that more authentic stuff at scale. I'd make sure that you focus on things like strategy, where do you want to see it, growth techniques and different things. There's that side, but as I said, if you're wanting that more smaller, more the funner element, I would say, it's all around just making sure that your members really enjoy what you're doing. Because to me, people measure community success differently. I'm not too fussed on number size. Some people have like, oh, I have 300 members at every single event. I'm like, that's great, but what do those 300 members actually take away? So for me, even like say a 20-person on average meetup in your local kind of really small office that someone's let you borrowed, and you've got a couple of pizzas from Domino's and some alcoholic and non-alcoholic drinks, and it's really successful and everybody loves it, and there's so many different war stories and things being shared, that to me is also just as successful as a 1,000-person conference. So whatever kind of scale or area you're in, I think just the key thing I would say is have fun, don't get burnt out. And if you can refine as many processes as possible, please do, because it does happen. I once booked 4 speakers for one event when I should have needed 2. You know, we have spent there's a couple of war stories I can talk around that, but we've put a deliberate focus on strategy and refining processes and different things. And as part of the work that we're doing through Operation Uplift, the community project that we're working on, we're actually providing a lot of open source guides in this space, but also taking a lot of the hassle off of community organisers' minds. So we're creating a national database of approved venues, which has got, like, for example, the size, community contacts, how many times they can host a month. So we're just taking what I would call the non-fun or the kind of pain out of organising, if you see what I mean. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, and then I think if you've got some great speakers that are and when I say great speakers, people that are saying relevant and interesting things, you know, that's really important. And then if you've then got some people that are coming along that, you know, are talking to you and happy to share their experiences and that kind of stuff, that's really lovely. So that's the best bit. If you've got a pizza and a beer or a Coke, brilliant, but you know, they're not essentials. But then the other thing that you need to do, and this is what I've learned from running a business, is then you have got to tell people about it. You know, there is kind of that thing, I think it was Field of Dreams, an old film, where they were like, if you build it, they will come. And I've just learned, that's a load of rubbish. If you build it and you tell people about it, they will come. There needs to be that telling of people about it. And you know, you can't just build something great and then keep it hidden away. That's the thing I've learned. If you build it, you make it great, and you tell people about it, then they'll come.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's that thing. It's all about marketing and promotion and etc. Like Meetup, to be fair, their kind of their UI and stuff isn't the best, but their algorithm is exceptional.
Right.
And it has enabled us to grow and scale quite quickly without us pushing. I mean, we probably do about 2 or 3 social media posts a month. We're not like daily. You won't find me on TikTok. You know, I can't be bothered with things like that. But the Meetup algorithm does a pretty good job. But it's quite surprising the amount of people don't know what Meetup is or that it exists. So when they do, it's so actually the kind of your customer acquisition cost, if you like, or community acquisition cost, is more around getting people to know what Meetup is, so that then they can find their local tech meetup.
So Meetup, maybe just if we step back a little bit on that. So Meetup is a great little website. And you can go in and put in your zip code, your postcode, your city, whatever it is, the topic that you're interested in, like Azure or AWS, whatever it is, and then it will bring up all of those Meetup communities that are on there. Is that right?
Yes, and it's completely free to use an end user, so it's only organisers that has to pay. So it's very good.
And so Meetup is one of the main places to find communities. What are the other ways that you can find out about communities, or is it all just on Meetup?
This is Meetup. There's Eventbrite, which I know different people use. There's a couple new unique startups in this space as well, so it'd be interesting to see if they take off. There's things like Azure Tech Maps as well. I think they are in the process of updating it. That has a list of all your Azure user groups and Microsoft user groups. I think there's a similar one for AWS as well. And then kind of local communities and different things. We are in the process of trying to build a map of all the major technical communities, but it's still in development. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. But yeah, Meetup is predominantly the place to go. Or maybe just ask internally. I think a lot of people, I know we talk about community meetups, but a lot of people forget about their own internal meetups, particularly if you work for a massive organization. I mean, we have different community things at Microsoft. So there is so many local communities, internal communities at work. So try and check out those as well.
Yeah. Well, I've just glanced at the clock and we are rapidly running out of time. So for all those folks that have been listening to this whilst they're at the gym or they're driving or mowing the lawn or whatever it is they might be doing, what would be the key takeaway, Ethan, that you'd like people to remember from our chat together?
So the first one is please just attend a community event. That's it. Whether you go once, it's not for you. Whether you keep going, if there's one key takeaway, find an evening in a year and just attend one. Find your local event and go to it and see what you think. And I think, the kind of opportunities after that will go on from where it is. The second side is help an organizer out. So if you do want to get involved, whether that's speaking or helping organize or promoting or mentioning internally, you work to drive more of your colleagues to come out. That's, second key point. I'd say that's about it, to be honest. Just attend. And if you can get involved, great. If not, just, really enjoy attending and keep coming back. That's all as an organizer. That's all I want, is people to go to my communities, love them, and hopefully keep coming back.
Yeah. And I think, as I reflect, my key takeaways would be, from a really selfish perspective, a really, what's in it for me perspective, they are a great place to learn. They are a great place to build relationships that can help your career. They're a great place to develop your skills. So, they're all really good from a selfish perspective, but then also it's a great place to give back and help and give, the next generation or other people that are developing their career and giving back as well. So I think a great place, and credit to you and all the teams of volunteers out there that are running these things. So great job. Just finally, if people have liked what you've been saying and want to get in touch with you, where can people get in touch with you, Ethan?
Yeah, sure. So LinkedIn's probably the best place. You can also check out my website. There's an email on there as well, but you're more likely to get a response from me on LinkedIn. You can send me a message on Meetup, but the API is a bit sporadic, so sometimes it comes through, sometimes it doesn't. So there you go.
So Ethan Sumner, and I'll put the link in the show notes so that people can find your LinkedIn profile to make sure that they are getting the right people, the right person. So I guess the final thing for me is to say thank you so much, Ethan. It has been brilliant to have you with us talking about all things community. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Great for having. Thank you for letting me come on.